Today we are in the kitchen making one of the most popular recipes year after year on my site momsdinner.com. It's called Instant Pot Beef and Barley Stew, and it's thick and hearty and rich, and you're absolutely gonna love it. Hi everybody, welcome to Mom's Dinner. Here we help adults feel successful at dinner time, so if that sounds good to you, hit that subscribe button. All right, so in the intro we said we are making some Instant Pot beef and barley. If you love your Instant Pot, you are going to love this recipe. We're gonna start by chopping up 2 celery stalks. And what I like to do with the celery stalks is actually cut them down the middle first, and then just give them a nice chop. You don't want to mince them, but you don't want huge chunks either. Kind of somewhere in between, about like that. Then we can just put all of our chopped veggies in here before we get the Instant Pot out. Then we need about 1.5 cups of carrots, and I've peeled these carrots and now we're just gonna chop them. Again, you want them to be in nice sized coins, not huge chunks, but you don't want them to be minced either because then they'll disintegrate in the Instant Pot. So we're just gonna cut the tops of these carrots off. And then let's do about 2 at a time. Something like that will be just right. And with the carrots, I'm gonna measure. I do like a lot of carrots in my soup, so I'm probably gonna do 1.5 heaping cups of carrots. Okay, I actually did 2 carrots there, so we'll get that added. Then the next thing we need is 1 large yellow or white onion, and I have a yellow onion today. That is usually the type of onion that I keep in my kitchen. I feel like it's one of the most versatile types of onions. With the onion, I do more of a dice. Definitely not a mince, and I don't want large chunks. So just a small dice for your onion is perfect. Onions get me every single time. Woo. The last thing we have to chop up for this beef and barley stew is a little bit of garlic. And I'm gonna use, I have some smaller garlic cloves here today, so I'm actually gonna use 4 garlic cloves. You can use 2 if you have really large garlic cloves, or you could use 10 if you really love garlic. It's totally up to you. And I don't like to overly mince my garlic. I like to just do a rough chop, and then we'll pop it in with the veggies. We're gonna start this recipe off by sauteing in the Instant Pot. And what you're gonna do is just hit that saute button, and it's gonna heat up that inner pot so that we can saute our vegetables. I'm gonna add 1 or 2 tablespoons of oil to get started, and then we'll add our veggies. We've got our Instant Pot on saute mode, and it's nice and heated up. The oil is nice and hot, so we're gonna add in all those veggies and that garlic that we chopped earlier, and get those all sauteed down for about 5 minutes, just until they start to soften. The nice thing about the Instant Pot is we don't have to soften them all the way because the pressure cooking will do a lot of the work for us. I want a little rosemary in my beef and barley today. It's not necessary to do these fresh herbs, but either rosemary or thyme or a combination of the 2 would be delicious in your stew. If you have some, or if you're going to the store, you could grab some. So I'm just gonna give this just a little rough chop, and I'm just gonna pop that right down in with the veggies and get that stirred around in the pot. Now we're gonna add a few herbs and flavors to this pot before we move on to the beef and the barley. So we've got some onion powder and garlic powder. We're gonna do 1.5 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce. 1 tablespoon of tomato paste, 1 teaspoon of kosher salt. Then we're gonna add 2 teaspoons of something called beef base. And beef base is like the more flavorful cousin of beef broth. At this point, you want the tomato paste and the beef base to just coat all those veggies and make sure that the flavor is just dispersed evenly throughout the pot. With your Instant Pot still on saute mode, you want to pour in your liquid and then scrape up any bits that are stuck to the bottom. We're going to do 4 cups of beef broth and 1.5 cups of water. So just give that a little stir while you kind of scrape up anything that's stuck to the bottom. So we're just going to unwrap this stew meat here. And I'll show you, it should come cubed like this so that they're just going to cook down into like bite-sized pieces. And that is your stew meat. Now, when you get your stew meat home and you look at it, if you have some really large pieces, you may want to cut a few of them down. But actually, it looks like I've got this just right. So about 1.5 pounds, 1 to 1.5 pounds of stew meat is what you'll need. Okay, and then the other thing we talked about is the pearled barley, that you want to make sure you use pearled barley. And I will pour out a couple little pieces here. So that is what a pearl barley is going to look like. And you should just be able to find it in the grain aisle at the grocery store by either the rice or the dried beans. At this point, we can just turn the saute mode off on our Instant Pot, and we can just plop this stew meat right down into the pot. And then we need 1 cup of the dry pearled barley. And we'll just get that poured right in. And what I like to do is just pour this in. I'm not going to really stir it in because I don't want the pearl barley to burn to the bottom of the pot. So I'm just going to make sure that all the barley is submerged in the liquid. And that's going to be good enough. I'm not going to stir it any more than that. Get your Instant Pot lid, pop that on. Make sure that the seal on top, the pressure seal, is to seal, not vent. Now we're going to set the Instant Pot to cook either on meat and stew or just on pressure mode for 25 minutes, and you can use the plus and minus buttons to make sure you have it on 25. Okay, so we'll let those settings be accepted. It will beep at you and let you know that it accepted your settings, and then we'll just sit down and let this do its thing, and we'll come back as soon as the 25 minutes are up. The 25 minutes is up, so I'm going to turn the pressure seal on the top to vent, and all the steam is going to escape. All the steam finally escaped and the pin dropped, so we're going to go ahead and open this pot up. But at this point, it is smoking hot. I mean, like firecracker hot. So what I'm going to do is just give it a little stir, and I'm going to let it cool for about 10 or 15 minutes. Number 1, it's going to cool down so that you can actually eat it. And number 2, it's going to thicken up. All that starch from the barley is going to thicken it up, so it's a really hearty stew, and it's going to be so good. This beef and barley is cooled, slightly thickened, and it's ready to serve. So I'm just going to dish out a little bowl. It's not quite dinner time, so I'm just going to have a little snack bowl. Let's give it a little try. The carrots are nice and tender, and the beef is super tender, but not fall apart tender. It is, you know, it's not falling apart in the soup, but it still is super tender. Ooh, still really hot. The flavor is spot on and the texture is spot on. So I really hope you'll make this comforting soup, especially this winter or in the fall. It's perfect, especially for a football game. So until next time, I hope that this recipe helps you feel like a success at dinner time. I'll see you next week. Ooh. Mmm. Mmm.